Hello there, my name is Steph and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new to my channel. In today's video, you might be able to tell by the thumbnail just over there, I'm going to be talking about the fact that in May 2024, on the 29th of May 2024, I had a stroke. And in this video, which I'm going to break down into three parts, I'm going to talk about my experience of having a stroke, what that was like, the immediate aftermath in the kind of first third of the video. I'm going to be talking about the after effects of my stroke, of what it meant for myself as a trans-identifying woman in the middle part of the video. And then for my returning subscribers, I'm going to be doing a little bit of a life update towards the end of the video. So stay tuned for that, or if you want to skip ahead, I really don't mind. If you're someone who's invested in me as more of a creator than me as more of a human with health, then feel free to skip right to the end, although how dare you and how could you? And so yeah, let's dive into today's video. So just a little bit of a disclaimer at the start of this video. Obviously talking about strokes and stroke-like events is something that can be very triggering for some people who have lived experience or shared experience. And so this is just a little bit of a disclaimer to say that if you feel like you might be triggered hearing about my story of having a stroke, then please click off this video. I'll link something nice and fuzzy and warm above so that you can go and watch that instead. Okay, so my experience having a stroke. I was just having a kind of normal day on the 29th of May 2024. I had just finished my classes for the day at my university where I'm currently doing a master's degree, and I was coming home on the tube and I felt a bit strange. My legs went kind of tingly, which was quite interesting, and then I was like, oh, okay, I need to get off the tube because I fainted on the tube before, and then also previously I've had blood clots in my brain, and I actually filmed a video about the worst blood clot I had in my transverse sinus jugular. I will link it above. I'm wearing this really cute like cloud dress in it, very adorable. And so I was no stranger to kind of like a neurological episode, and so I thought I'm going to get off the train and get onto the platform. Got onto the platform and felt fine. So continued about my day, but decided to walk home. I don't know why. Being in the tube when you're having a neurological kind of episode is an absolute nightmare. It's very overstimulating. It's very warm. There's a lot of visuals kind of flying at you left and right. And so I thought, no, I will get off the tube. And I went about my day as normal. And actually, I used it as an excuse to go into an Argos. For those of you who are watching from America, an Argos is like an order at the counter kind of store, and you go through a catalogue and you pick your item and you go and pay for it and then you collect it. I don't know if there's something like that in America. Who knows? But I was in an Argos and my entire left leg went completely numb, and it was a really strange radial feeling. It wasn't a pain, it was just an absence of feeling. It was like a pins and needles feeling, but one that radiated, that moved, and I could feel it move throughout my body. So it started in my left leg, came all the way up my left calf, into my left thigh, my hip, my abdomen, and then it started in my right leg as well, and it came all the way up my right leg, through my calf, through my thigh, and it was predominantly more in my left-hand side, but at one point it was throughout my entire body. And so I was like, okay, something is happening. And my instinct when something is happening is get myself home. However, my instinct absolutely should have been get myself to A&E, but my instinct was to get myself home and to call my mum. And my lovely mum, if you are watching, Lynnette, she is the Lynnette from Stephanie Lynnette. She's my middle name. If you're watching, thank you so much for FaceTiming me while I had a stroke. I don't think that is something that she was planning to be privy to at any point during my life. She did very, very well. And so I had this numbness radiating through my body. I couldn't hold anything with my left hand. Obviously I can now. I couldn't hold anything with my left hand. I couldn't grip anything. I had lost a bit of my cognitive function. And something that was happening that I didn't know until I FaceTimed my mum was I had a temporary partial facial paralysis. Not a facial droop like in some serious stroke victims, but a temporary facial paralysis where only half of my face was moving, only half of my muscle in the face was kind of smiling, and it was drooping on my left side, which is the same feeling that had the kind of radial absence of feeling. And now I am only 27, but as I said, this wasn't my first kind of neurological episode, so my instinct was to go home but to stay on the phone to my mum in case it got worse. So walked myself home. I live in London, I live in Chelsea, so I walked myself home to Chelsea and got through the door, called an ambulance because I had called 111, which in the United Kingdom, I don't know if you have something like this in America, in the United Kingdom you call 111, then you escalate to 999, or you can escalate to 999 through calling 111. So if you're a pedantic person with imposter syndrome like me, 111 is a godsend because you can call them and be like, is my problem serious to need a doctor? And then they'll, you know, be on the other side of the phone and they'll be like, oh, it sounds like you're having a stroke. Yeah, you should probably have an ambulance. So waited for ages for the ambulance, ages and ages and ages. And actually at one point got a call from the paramedic to be like, do you still need this? And I was like, do you remember? And they were like, oh my gosh, you're the person having a stroke. Really, really sorry. I live in central London, so ambulances are quite sparse sometimes, and I also feel like maybe I wasn't a priority because I think I was downplaying my symptoms a lot, which is something you should not do if you're in this scenario. And so the paramedics got to my house, stroke specialist looked me over like the paramedic's iPad. If you get a paramedic come to your house and they're not a specialist in a certain area, then they can call someone who is a specialist and they'll do like a facial test. Anyway, come to find out, I had had something called a TIA. A TIA is a transient asthmatic attack. Transient asthmatic attack. Can't pronounce the middle word. It's a hard word. And a TIA is a mini stroke. And as someone who had previously had experience with blood clots in the brain, and as someone who had had previous neurological episodes, it was kind of a big like panic, everyone panic, get Steph to hospital. So I was taken to hospital through A&E, no, not through A&E, straight into minors or majors, whichever one you get taken straight through from an ambulance. And I was like texting my mum as it was happening, and my mum's a nurse, so I was like, this is what's happening and this is what they're saying to me and da 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 da. And so it was a really kind of scary experience, but with a TIA, the symptoms can dissipate within 24 to 48 hours. And so I was, you know, still experiencing partial facial paralysis, but it wasn't as severe as it was during the episode I was having. I still had radial numbness in my left limbs, but it, again, wasn't as bad as when it was happening. And so I was admitted to hospital, and I was inpatient for over a week in early June, which was an absolute nightmare because I was meant to be starting a new job. It was a very inconvenient time for me to have any form of stroke, even if it was just a small stroke. So was an inpatient for a week, had lots of tests, had lots of MRIs and things like that, and they kind of came to the conclusion that a TIA is like a temporary blockage somewhere in the brain that can cause a mini stroke with stroke-like symptoms. It's not as severe as a major stroke, but I was going through and doing this thing, and I was like, who am I to talk about this experience? You know, I haven't had a proper stroke. And it's like, well, no, I have. I would never say to someone else who had had a TIA, oh, your stroke wasn't big enough to share it and to raise awareness of what it is like to experience going through a stroke. And so I was an inpatient for just over 8 days. It was absolutely horrendous. I had a really bad time in hospital at that point. I was very lucky that I had had my stroke in an Argos because I just bought a video game. Because for those that don't know, I'm a gamer. There you go. Gamer. Just to drive that point home. And we kind of went through and we got to the conclusion that the reason I had had a TIA is because I'm on estrogen in a pill form, and that is potentially what caused my previous blood clot. And so talking with the neurology team and having these MRIs and things like that, we are moving forwards with a plan of moving me off of a higher dose of estrogen onto a lower dose of estrogen, from tablets onto gel and things like that. So if you were looking at me and thinking that I had a TIA because I'm a fat person, that's fat phobia. And I hope I've just challenged your unconscious bias towards fat people, because it had nothing to do with my weight and everything to do with my medication. Yay. So I hope I've just shocked you with the realization there. And so for myself, that was kind of the extent of what had happened. I felt like I was completely not in charge of my own body. I felt like sorry, I'm a bit like teary, and I don't mean to be. It's just it was a really kind of strange experience for me, because obviously I'm only 27 and I have had multiple neurological episodes, and so I'm like, there's something wrong, and I had a lot of that kind of like, there's something wrong, I need to. And so that was the extent of what happened to me. And having a TIA puts you at a higher risk of having another TIA. And having a TIA and previously having had a blood clot in your brain puts you at a much higher risk of developing much more serious strokes. And so now I'm being monitored for all of that. As you can see, I am okay. I think that's probably a really good point to kind of like hammer home. I'm okay, I have recovered, I have a plan in place, I have people around me. But I won't lie when I say that having a stroke, even a small one, it really kind of got me feeling my own morality, and it really got me into this place of like, what's really important and all of those things. And so I've kind of taken a step back from YouTube, not because I wanted to, but because I was doing a master's degree and then I had a stroke and then I started a new job, and I was like, I need all of these things to align a little bit more, because what's happening at the moment is they are not aligning, they're all conflicting. And that was another thing that we spoke about with the neurology team, is like the high stress that I was experiencing at that time of like finishing on my master's, changing my entire career path, putting stress on myself to come back to YouTube, putting stress on myself genuinely, like as a trans person. And so that was kind of the extent of the episode. My mum, I think, is traumatized for life watching her middle child like have a small stroke on, because the thing is as well, something that's really important to know about TIAs, transient ischemic attacks, is their symptoms are almost indistinguishable from a stroke to begin with. So all my mum saw was potentially me having a major stroke, with like facial paralysis, with dropping my phone while she was on FaceTime in the middle of the street, with falling over, and so, I think I've definitely scarred her for life. And then, the aftermath of it was really quite difficult, because the other thing that came into play is because my TIA was a suspected result of a blood clot, which can be caused by estrogen. And estrogen puts you at higher risk of developing blood clots. It's a medication that puts you at risk of developing blood clots. So I'd highly recommend you kind of monitor yourself on it. Obviously, I've been a trans woman for a very long time, and so mine is heavily monitored, but isn't so heavily monitored anymore, because as you get further into transition, levels level out and things like that. And so I kind of went through all of that. There's a lot of gender dysphoria that has come with that for me. There's been a lot of feelings about, lowering my estrogen level also means things for my mental health as well as for my physical health. And obviously I will always try and preserve my physical health. And so moving from tablets to gel, lowering dosages, working with neurology teams, you know, there's a lot of moving cogs. And I think that's kind of the other thing I'm struggling with is the fact that it's not yet solved, because it's an ongoing thing. Obviously I've already had blood clots before. I've gone through this kind of very traumatic, because I live alone. And so having a stroke when you live alone is an absolute nightmare. Just for the record, as an aside, I sound like this because I have a cold, not because I had a stroke. And it's also not because I've lowered my estrogen. It's literally because I have a cold. Just as a side note about my voice. So yeah, there's been a lot of kind of fallout from it. There's been a lot of reevaluating things. I've been quite quiet on channels, but today is, today, October the 29th, 2024, is World Stroke Day. And World Stroke Day, you know, as I've said, is all about, it's an organisation that was set up with the intention of raising awareness for strokes and how serious strokes can be. You know, 1 in 4 people in their lives will experience a stroke. I'm just one of the unlucky people who have experienced 2 different but similar neurological events in a kind of short space of time. And because of my age, that's also like a different factor, because I think, you know, it's so often the idea of a stroke is typecast into an older category, which is definitely where the statistic lies. But it's really important to be able to share those experiences from a young person's perspective as well. And to say things like, you know, a TIA is still as valid as having a stroke. The symptoms are very, very similar in the early days. It's the after effects and the longevity of those effects that are where they differ. If you think you might be experiencing a TIA, please go straight to an A&E. Don't FaceTime your mum and walk home. It's a really bad idea. It also meant that by the time I was having tests and MRIs and things like that, so many of my symptoms had kind of subsided that it was difficult to test for things. So if you're having a neurological episode, get yourself to A&E straight away. Let them know what's happening. If I had walked into an A&E and I had had a temporary facial paralysis, like a small droop on the side of my face, I would have been in an MRI machine within maybe 10 minutes. So make sure that you're kind of putting the right steps in place and things like that. I'm going to put some links in the description of this video to some organisations that support stroke survivors, stroke awareness, stroke campaigners. So you can go and do some research on those sorts of things. I know there's a lot of people in my audience who also take estrogen, because obviously I'm trans femme, and so please feel free to go and research some of that as well. I'm not here to say that, you know, estrogen is the cause of every, you know, I'm not doing any of that. I love being on estrogen. Being on estrogen has saved my life multiple times. But, you know, long-term use of estrogen has resulted in myself developing repeated blood clots, and that's just something that I have to deal with. It is a risk in taking estrogen. It is a risk that's laid out. I was in full awareness when I started taking that medication. I will not be stopping taking that medication. It's just a case of managing it. And so I don't want there to be any kind of misconstrued information there. I'm a trans person. I'm happy that I'm on estrogen. Estrogen has saved my life. It just so happens that I'm experiencing one of the potential side effects of estrogen. So I also wanted to make that very clear. So that's my experience of having a stroke. That's the kind of aftermath. And so now I guess I want to do a little bit of a life update for the people who have been wondering where I've been, because I've not uploaded a video since March, and then I was due to upload a video in May, and then, you know, stroke. Super fun. And so it was, you know, it's been a difficult couple of, it's been a really hard couple of months, and this is the longest I've gone without uploading a video, and I really miss uploading on YouTube. And I think, you know, something I miss is the interaction with people that I have. You know, I don't have a huge audience of people, but there are over 7,000 of you now, which is crazy, absolutely insane. But I do miss the kind of parasocial relationship that comes with that. And for me, you know, I have a creative degree, my MA is at creative, and I've now moved into a different sector, into kind of clinical healthcare and working with trans adults and things like that. And so I use YouTube so much as a creative outlet, but also somewhere that I can kind of share my thoughts and feelings and my experiences. And I love being a YouTuber, and I love, you know, being an influencer, a very, very small influencer. And I really enjoy that part of me and that part of who I am. And I think it's really integral to who I am and how I progress in my life. And so I guess, yeah, to those of you who, you know, watch my channel or have found, you know, useful things in my channel, this is very much a mask of oh my god, because I've got a cold, a mask. That'll be the clickbait. It was like, Stephanie Lynnette, real voice. Hi guys. Wait, no. Hi guys, how are you doing today? Like cold voice, love that. So I just wanted to talk about the fact that I had a stroke, and so I wanted to jump on here just to update everybody about that. Okay, yeah, I'm going to avoid doing that because that actually really hurt my vocal cords. So yeah, I just wanted to say, you know, that's why I've been away. It's not because I am done with YouTube. It's not because I am, you know, have abandoned this kind of part of who I am. I just had a stroke, and that's where I've been. And I'm not going to put any pressure on myself to come back super soon, but I would like to start uploading regular videos again. I also have a new swivel chair, which means that I'm not staying very still during this video. But yeah, that's where I've been, and I hope you lovelies are all doing very well, and I've missed you a lot. And I hope that you're going to show me lots of love in the comments, and I will reply to every single one of them, because I have missed being a like, call and response person. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know this video is a little bit different to me because obviously, you know, I had a stroke is a very different subject to this is what my vagina feels like. But it was just really important for me to share this, and it felt really important for me to share this on World Stroke Day as well. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I will see you very soon, I'm sure. But until then, please look after yourself. If you're having a neurological episode, get yourself to A&E. Having a TIA is just as serious as having a stroke. Do not treat your symptoms as anything less than. Make sure that you look after yourself, make sure your estrogen levels are monitored, make sure that any medication that puts you at a risk of blood clot is being thoroughly monitored, regardless of your age. And just have a good day and enjoy life and live life. And, you know, I've got into this very like, because my morality was very like, oh my God, you had a stroke. I'm very just there like, oh my God. So have a great day, avoid transphobia, and I hope in some way maybe this video has helped to, you know, talk about where I've been and my absence online, but also to raise awareness just through sharing my experience, which is ultimately all I've ever been about as a creator. So there you go. Okay, I think that's it for now. I'm going to go rest my voice, and it was lovely to see you all, and I will see you all in the comments section and then on the next video. Bye. Bye.